Hey everybody, Big Mike Sports, Atlanta born, Carolina raised, Detroit driven. Big Mike back with you here once again.
The one and only. Yeah, I'm back.
And it was a pretty insane game for the Lions. I think we can all agree upon that. Not exactly the result we wanted to see with the Seahawks triumphing over the Lions 37-31 in overtime. But the fact that it still remained a competitive game when it really obviously could have, been way out of reach when Jared Goff threw that pick six. The fact that the Lions were able to battle back and still keep it close despite all the mistakes really shows that I think the Lions are not quite where they want to be at the end of the year. Obviously, this isn't their final form, but it's a little closer than you might think based on the result. I mean, of course, after the score in this game, 37-31, not a huge improvement over last year's 48-45 debacle, but there were a couple of things that went better than that game that I think shows kind of a little bit of a progression, if anything. And that was the fact that the Lions did indeed cause the Seahawks to punt in this game. They actually got some stops in some pretty key moments. They got the stop when it was 7-7 to then score their own touchdown, make it 14-7. And then, of course, that stop at the very end of the game that gave them the chance to win it in regulation. So, yeah, despite all the mistakes, the Lions still could have pulled out this win. Just a couple key moments didn't go their way exactly, but we'll talk about that in a second. And now, it seems like one of the keys to this game was, like, ever since the beginning, things were kind of a little uneasy, I guess you could say. I think that the players were just a little bit too amped up and jittery for the position that they were in. Of course, the home opener against a team that they really wanted to beat, a team that they haven't had a whole lot of recent success against. So I think that really brought the players a little bit of nervous energy. I mean, of course, it's good to be able to bring a lot of energy if you're able to harness it and channel it and use it against your opponent. But this energy was kind of more of a nervous energy, like I said. Like, you got guys coming out a little too overexcited to make a big play, and I think it really wore out the defense after a little while. Because if you're really trying to, do the best you can and make a big play every time out there, you're gonna get tired pretty quickly after a while. I mean, you don't need to make a huge play every possession or every play. You just gotta wait and kind of let it come to you, and a little bit of over pursuit on the defense sometimes, and really trying to take you down the opponent a little bit too early. I mean, you saw the the DK Metcalf play at the goal line where Kirby Joseph and CJ Gardner Johnson both go in to hit him, and he goes down at the goal line. All three players involved in that play walked away with some sort of injury, so you're going a little bit too hard, putting a little bit too much on the line too early. You kind of got to, take the game as it comes, and, remind yourself that you got to play a full 60 minutes. It's a marathon and not a sprint. And then also into the second half with the David Montgomery fumble and the David Montgomery injury. He's on the play where he got injured. He was kind of twirling around trying to get out of a tackle, and it really, flexed his leg in kind of awkward ways, which is how he ended up getting injured. So if you just go down there and just live to fight another play, I think it's a little better than trying to, squirm and put your body in kind of unnatural positions for the maybe 1% chance of breaking out of that tackle. In fact, it was kind of an anxious game by the Lions, if you want to use that kind of terminology, where, like, they're really worried about certain things, makes them kind of overthink or maybe look past a couple things. Late in the game, as I said, the defense kind of got worn down for playing so much with so much intensity for so long, and kind of had some certain lapses in judgment too. I mean, you saw Jerry Jacobs play pretty far off the outside receiver late in the game, and it led to some pretty easy completions on out routes. So I think it was just a little bit too much too early for the Lions defense. I mean, you can try and say that the Lions defense is what lost them the game, but I mean, it really wasn't. I mean, like I said, they got the key stops when they had to, and the pick six hurt the Lions. Obviously, that Jared Goff threw there, which kind of almost seemed like it was going to put the game away until the Lions were able to make it a game and eventually tie it up at the end. But, it really wasn't the defense that was the biggest concern. It was really the turnovers. I mean, you got the two fumbles and the pick six, as we mentioned. The fumbles were really what hurt because you come out, you get the ball in the second half. It's to start the second half. It's 21-17. You have the chance to really start to put the game away, and you immediately fumble it away and give the Seahawks a free possession. That in and of itself is not going to win you any games because when you have your opportunities to kind of put the opponent away, you really need to make the most out of them. If you're squandering possessions like that and keeping your opponent in the game, it's really not going to help you in the long run. And then On that Seahawks drive that happened from the fumble, uh, at the end, Kirby Joseph has the opportunity to make an interception there, and it just glances off of his fingertips. And that's another one of the key plays that just barely did not go the Lions' way. Because if you get that interception and kind of negate your own turnover, you keep the Seahawks from going up 24-21 and making it even more of a game. You take some of the pressure off of your offense to, just waste some clock and just hold on to the ball for a little while instead of trying to play from behind and make a play happen every time. So that's another one of the key moments besides the fumbles that really, really swung the game out of the Lions' hands. But you still got to give a lot of credit to the Lions as a team as a whole because they definitely could have quit and just rolled over after that pick six. But it's still a very competitive team, still a team that believes that they can win any given Sunday no matter what the circumstances are. And the fact that they were able to battle back after all of that and make it 31-28 and get the stop at the end to give the offense the ball back really shows you the kind of fortitude that the team has. They're not going to count themselves out of any game. And then at the very end on the final drive, they did what they had to do to waste down the clock to make sure that they were the last ones to have the ball. No chance for the Seahawks to have it again in regulation. But at the very end on that third down, the last play, Goff just goes ahead and checks it down to try and get a little closer to the field goal. And they were already in pretty good field goal range. I mean, that pass made it maybe like a 43-yarder at the most down to a 38-yarder. But on that third down, you just got to go ahead and take your shot to the end zone. Like, I don't care what happens. If you're trying to go out and, throw a bomb to win, like, just take the best shot you can and try to score a touchdown. Don't settle for the field goal and play not to lose. It seemed like they just didn't want to risk it. Like Goff just didn't want to risk throwing another interception. I think he might have been playing a little scared there. But you just got to be fearless and take your shot. If this Dan Campbell team is really what they say that they are, you got to take that shot. You got to be gritty. You got to grit your teeth and just try and win. But instead, they decided that they really liked their chances in overtime, and they went ahead and just kicked the field goal. And as soon as Seattle won the toss, it made you pretty nervous because at the end of the game, the defense was really wearing down and didn't seem like they were necessarily capable of getting a stop or a turnover or anything. So I really think that they should have taken a shot at the very end to try and go for the win at the very least. But it's also important not to get too far down after this loss, obviously. I mean, there were a lot of us who knew that 2-0 would be really nice, but 1-1 was definitely the most likely scenario, whether it was a loss to the Chiefs or the Seahawks. And the team was riding really high after the win against the Chiefs. Maybe they were a little, high on themselves. And that's the thing about the NFL too. Seahawks were coming off of a pretty bad loss. People are going to give you their best shot every time. I mean, they are NFL teams. And it's kind of the perfect Week 2 matchup in a way, because you had the Lions coming off of a big emotional win, and then you had the Seahawks coming off of a really dramatic loss where they didn't really play very well. So you had the Seahawks coming off the bad performance, putting in a really good performance to kind of, renew themselves. And then the Lions kind of had a wake-up call, snap back to reality after such a big win. So it's definitely, you don't want to call it a necessary loss because you don't really like losing anyway, but as long as you learn the lessons that you take from this game and use that in the game's future, like I think that this will be good for the team in the long run because it'll give you some good film, good examples of what to clean up, and really what you're playing for, because the field was on fire with the crowd and everything getting really pumped up, so they were definitely playing to that with the kind of energy that we saw. But you kind of also have to relax and just take in the moment as it comes, not let the moment get to you too much. It's great to have the home field behind you, but you can't let it, get to you too much where it's kind of affecting your judgment and, getting yourself hurt or really blowing an assignment because of it. So a lot of lessons that can be learned. It's definitely not the end of the season. The season is not over. The fact that, they fought to stay in the game after so many things went wrong. I mean, winning a game where you commit 3 turnovers and you don't force any yourself, that's really tough to do. And the fact they almost did it is, a good sign of the fight of the team at the very least. I mean, you obviously want to clean some of that stuff up. You don't want to be fumbling all the time. So yeah, definitely some good, definitely some bad, some lessons to be learned. But I think that if you do learn from it, the season will be just fine. Now, it is a pretty tough opponent coming up next week with the Falcons. Another one that you can't really look over. So that game will really show us where the Lions are for the season after this game. After this game, it looks like a 10-win team to me, 10-7. Like I said, the Falcons game will really reveal where the team's really at. But yeah, in these next games, you definitely have to take the opportunities when they're presented to you. You can't fumble the ball away when you're trying to go up 2 scores. You got the Montgomery fumble, and then also that Amon-Ra fumble at the very end of the first half. He's wide open, streaking down the field. He had the chance to make 14-7, go to 21-7 real quick. So, when the opportunities present themselves, you got to be up there for the moment. And I think that this team will be ready for the opportunities in the future when they present themselves. Because you got to think, Ritter had a pretty good game this past week against the Packers, ended up getting the win. But, maybe he'll be able to give a couple to the defense in this upcoming game. And then, of course, you also got to worry about Bijan. Now, the Lions were pretty good against the run in this game. Of course, they did give up the 2 rushing touchdowns at the goal line. But overall, in terms of yards per carry, they did pretty well to bottle them up. So you definitely got to worry about Bijan at the goal line and hope that they have a good plan for him. But the Falcons' offense isn't the greatest. So hopefully it'll be a good matchup for the defense to get themselves back to where they need to be, force a few turnovers, and keep the other team from scoring, which is ultimately what you want to have happen, and not put the offense in positions where there's too much pressure and they'll end up trying to do too much because of it. And then offense, you gotta be able to settle down and play with the lead and protect the lead and everything. So yeah, a lot of good things to look forward to for this upcoming game. Hopefully they'll be able to take what they need to and deliver a strong performance this upcoming Sunday. Another chance at home as well. So just a short little recap of that game today. We'll have a little bit more in the coming days. Hopefully this episode is alright and I wasn't rambling too much. I was feeling a little tired today on this Monday, but a couple more Monday Night Football games that maybe we'll have some reaction to, some college games, some fantasy stuff. Gonna get into some fantasy basketball as well, so stay tuned. And oh yeah, maybe some fan questions too. Anyway, yeah, we'll see you soon.